everybody. Happy Wednesday morning, and welcome to another episode of Mornings with the Outlaw with special guest Alex Shashek here live from the Outlaw Nation studios. At least I am here in Beverly Hills, California. She is live from somewhere in Missouri. I want to give her some love. Alex, thank you so much for being such a great addition to the show already over the last week and a half. I mean, the views have been up. The comments are fantastic. People are loving our chemistry. So thank you so much. How have you been? How have you been finding being on the show? Maybe a little check-in here. How have you been enjoying the show?
Everyone's been pretty great. I have no complaints on my end. Like all your viewers, all your fans and everything have been pretty warm and pretty awesome. I'm sure once I have some, I am curious to see how if their opinions might change or anything like that towards me.
What, on the internet?
Once they start getting a little more aggressive. Or once they start having a little more aggressive opinions on things, so I'm kind of curious to see how quick it might change. But so far so good. Everyone has been pretty fantastic. So I thank you so much for welcoming not only you, John, but everyone hanging out in the chat as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's how the internet works. Alex, as soon as they love you at first, and as soon as you start having some strong opinions, they get super upset. That's for sure.
Everyone has opinions. Everyone should have opinions. But opinions, we need diverse thoughts and ideas about different stories. Because why the heck not?
I agree. It makes the world go around. That's for damn sure. For those of you who are joining us, maybe you have for the first time or whatever, this show, we're going to talk about a bunch of news items from the world of entertainment, getting deep on it, give you our thoughts and our opinions and our feelings on it, and then we'll wrap it up at around 9:45 a.m. PT to give you a little bit of a break before you jump into SCN Live at 10 a.m. I do want to say one thing for those of you who missed the episode last night. Please do yourselves a favor after you watch this show. Go and watch my interview with Kate Mulligan last night on the Outlaw Nation show. So much fun with her, getting down about the Schmodown, getting down about her life, getting down about her career in comedy, and some stuff that she experienced herself, that she's going through some therapy. We talked about all kinds of crazy stuff and fun stuff, and of course, real stuff as well, as we always do on the Outlaw Nation show, and had some great comments from people coming in with their Streamlabs and their Super Chats and coming in live to ask questions. So go and watch that after you're done here. Trust me, it's one interview you do not want to miss. And last night, Alex Shashek had a cinema bias situation going down. How did that conversation go?
It was really great. We both had very different interpretations of the movie. Surprise. Crazy, right? But Drew and Eric said that movie has, and because for them, several of them at the dungeon house, essentially, I've never seen the movie before.
And you're referencing Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I grew up with that movie. My parents, they were like, no, as an Asian American, you need to go see this movie because there's so few movies out there. You need to see this in theater. Yeah. So I remember seeing it in theaters like 10 times. It was like my version of Titanic.
Yeah.
And then just so I obviously have a very different experience, like surrounding like relationship with some of the characters and everything. But Drew, she said, "Oh my gosh, the sweeping romance! It's such a sexy movie," and I was like, "Wait, what?" It's so cool. And I'm like, that's the big takeaway. But we again open interpretation, and he was like, "You know what? It's the first time I saw it in a long time," and I was surprised that it is a very sexy, beautiful movie. Obviously, so
absolutely, it's one I haven't seen in quite some time, but I do have the 4K version. I'm going to dive into that at some point and enjoy the lush landscapes that Ang Lee was able to have throughout that film, and like you said, what we spoke about earlier, some of those great fights and the trees and all that stuff going through. That's visually a masterpiece of a movie. That's for sure.
I gotta know, quick Schmodown question for you. How many times has Ang Lee been nominated for Best Director?
Good question.
Because I don't know, because I realized last night that Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon's been nominated
twice.
Because I know not only that movie was Crouching Tiger was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, and a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah.
Fun fact on it, that movie is actually the highest grossing foreign film in the U.S.
Wow.
It made over like 120 million in the U.S. in circa 2000, which is nuts. Roma, Parasite, none of those really.
Wow.
They don't compare. Parasite barely cracked 50 million gross domestic in the U.S. So it's
right.
little perspective.
The question is, the answer is 3 times. It was for Crouching Tiger, it was for Brokeback Mountain, and Life of Pi, which I always forget.
Forgot about that.
He directed. Yeah. So those are your answers for that question there, Alex Shashek. Well, listen, we're going to get into Oh, yeah, there's a lot of people there. 333. 233. Yeah, we're going to get into a lot of stuff today. Of course, there's some more updates on the Snyder cut. David Ayer wants his cut out there now. He's coming around on that. Doug Liman directing Tom Cruise in space. We got a new Dragon Tattoo series, not movie, coming, and some Indiana Jones 5 updates from Frank Marshall. We're going to start off the show with Labyrinth, that sequel that was announced yesterday. Alex, please take us into this one.
Okay, Scott Derrickson. Sorry, let me just start over. TriStar Pictures, they're the studio that, really brought forward a lot of really big major movies, like last year, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Baby Driver, as well as T2 Trainspotting. So, definitely a pretty big main studio for sure. They enlisted Scott Derrickson. You might know him from Doctor Strange, but he's also very known for doing a lot of horror movies, Exorcism of Emily Rose, Sinister, for example. Yeah. So he definitely has that kind of horror creature building background as well. But he is, he's tapped to be directing this untitled Labyrinth potential sequel, project. And so he has a history of writing, obviously not only directing, but he's done quite a bit of scripting as well. But TriStar Pictures, they're actually going to have not only they're going to have Maggie Levin. She's a pretty notable script writer right now. She's been involved with several big Hulu projects, Into the Dark and My Valentine as well on Hulu. So they're definitely coming together pretty quickly on this project. Right away they're trying to attract a lot of big name people. Not only Brian and Lisa Henson. The Hensons, kids are actually going to be involved with this actively as producers and executive producers. There's going to be, feels like a very personal project. TriStar Pictures, they're actively saying, hey, you actually want to take this project seriously, not only because we want to attract the right people to watch, but we want to honor this really wonderful film, this cult film that's gained not only like a huge following over the past 30 years since its release. Famously so, this movie failed hugely in box office in the late 80s. But since it's gained a huge legion of fans, it actually has one of the biggest masquerade balls in the world, which is kind of like a random little factoid there. That's true. But it's spawned comic books, web series, other regular books, so much has really spawned from this. So I'm really kind of curious to see, in Scott Derrickson's hands, what's going to happen. There's a lot of different directions we can take this in.
Absolutely. Because the original is her trying to save her brother from the Goblin King. So already people are trying to find out, well, who's going to replace David Bowie? Can you replace David Bowie? Is that possible? Yesterday on SEN Live when it came up, I said, well, if you can replace Robin Williams in Aladdin, you can replace David Bowie as the Goblin King. Remember, in The Matrix, we lost the Oracle in the third movie. She passed away between the second and third movie. They replaced her. So certainly people can be replaced. I know David Bowie is legendary, and RIP, certainly an incredible career and legacy that he left behind after he passed. But there are people that can step into this. I think Tilda Swinton comes to mind. Janelle Monáe was mentioned. A couple of other people. Tom Hiddleston was mentioned. So there's possibilities where it can step into the role of the Goblin King. The thing is, what's the story here? Is there something more? Is this like It, where they come back? He comes back 27 years later. Like, is this a thing where the Goblin King is coming back and has taken a new form to mess with Jennifer Connelly, or is he messing with Jennifer Connelly's children, or maybe Jennifer Connelly is it? God forbid, she could be a grandma. They could be messing with her grandchildren,
or alternatively, she could be the Goblin King.
That's a possibility as well.
Saying she's amazing. She's coming up hot right now of Snowpiercer, the TV show, as well as actively being involved in the MCU. A wee bit. So she's definitely a hot commodity right now as well that we cannot forget. But there's not only just a lot of different interpretations of how we can take this movie, but we got to know it's a pretty great soundtrack. I mean soundtrack. It's going to be a musical. It's going to be more horror focused. It's Scott Derrickson. It's going to be still focused on hyper focused on the fantasy aspect or whatever it might be, coming of age. So We don't know.
Well, and they certainly wanted to go on a horror angle for this because originally Fede Alvarez was someone that they had been speaking to about doing this a few years ago. Of course, Fede Alvarez doing a bunch of horror films himself. So that was someplace they wanted to go. But I think after the Dragon Tattoo situation didn't do so well, they felt maybe they could move on to someone else, or maybe there was creative differences, what have you. I know the Guardians of the Galaxy screenwriter, Nicole, sorry, I got to look that name up real quick. She was in talk, Nicole Perlman. She had been in talks supposedly for the sequel, then denied it and said that people asking her about it was like a punch in the gut because she was such a massive David Bowie fan. But that does not mean the talks weren't necessarily happening. Just the timing of them being released was something that probably upset her at the time. So certainly moving into a whole new direction, but still keeping the vibe of a horror director. And Scott Derrickson, of course, as you said, did previous horror films. But Doctor Strange is such an unusual approach to an MCU film. It's such an unusual approach to an MCU. I love it, to an MCU film. So what will his approach be? Will it be maybe they wanted someone that wasn't fully horror, so they wanted somewhere in the middle, and they felt like Derrickson did a really nice job with Doctor Strange, maybe, and so they want to go with him and work with this. Now, will there be creature feature? Like, will there be real effects, or will it be CGI? Will it be like what is the kind of approach they're going to take for this film? I'm very curious.
Absolutely. It's one of those stories, it's a cult film. So how do people enjoy cult films? A lot of times it's like they see, like if it was I don't know if anyone here, I don't know what their first experience with watching it, but I remember seeing it for the first time when I was like in middle school at like a sleepover at like 2 a.m. when you're huddled together eating like cold pizza with friends. It's that kind of situation. When people are watching this for the first time, it's usually because friends, family, they're introducing it to them because they're like, hey, this movie is amazing and I want you to experience it, on such an awesome level like I did. So I'm really kind of curious to see, if they're not only how fans are going to react to this, because I know, I'm a huge, Labyrinth fan, but let's face it. There is pushback to a lot of these movies, especially these cult movies that seem such a huge devout following being remade, so. But a lot of people are also against, reboots, in general. So go figure. Crazy.
We just had the Dark Crystal series come out. That was essentially the same kind of thing, kind of an 80s fantasy film that people had a thing for and having it come out. It got good reviews. I'm not sure of the numbers because Netflix doesn't always release the numbers, but it did get good reviews for the most part. So, yeah.
It also had a lot of great people attached to it, behind the scenes, but also a lot of, very popular, people like a lot of notable actors were also involved with it. So it's really circling back to this whole idea of like, resurgence of the 80s and what 80s did for us culturally. So, but because I know the whole impact of, visually speaking, what the 80s has done for, especially Hollywood in particular. But I wouldn't want this movie to come out and everyone's kind of over the 80s and vibes, remakes and everything if everyone's already done with it. So I'm hoping we still get this movie. I hope it's still going to be super duper popular and everything. So fingers crossed.
Yeah. And what's your experience with Labyrinth? Is this one you've watched and enjoyed growing up as a child, or is this something that you still haven't quite experienced yet yourself?
Well, I watched it for the first time, like I mentioned, at a sleepover with friends, at 2 a.m. and I was completely mesmerized by the idea of David Bowie singing to me. So, who is it? Did you see that hair? It's magical. Right. It is. But it's really great. I still think the soundtrack, slaps. It's wonderful. And, David Bowie, sexual icon, just saying.
Yep. That's true. For both sides. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Shout out to Larry Lees here with a super chat. Good morning, Outlaw. Great show yesterday. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate that. It was a lot of fun last night with Kate. But thank you for joining us, Larry. And thanks to all of you all for joining us. And remember, the Streamlabs and the super chats are open. We need those to keep the lights on here in the Outlaw Nation. So please send those things in. Right above there is the address. Right above Alex's head is the address for the Streamlabs. And of course, super chat, you know what to do on the YouTube. So send those things in. And thanks to how many we watched? I got I have to keep refreshing on YouTube now, apparently, to see how many people are actually watching, how many likes we really have as we're going along. So 116 of you all are watching, but only 58 likes. So please do us a favor, swing that cursor button over, hit that like button, get us over 100 likes as soon as possible as we march on through all the topics that we're talking about here today. And Alex, we'll see what happens with Labyrinth 2. I mean, Scott Derrickson left Doctor Strange 2, so hopefully there isn't creative differences here and he sticks around, because I like him a lot as a director and I would love to see what he could do with this material.
Absolutely. I mean, he's one of those directors that, you know, he likes having a certain level of creative control, which I immensely respect. That's why he directs. He's offered so many projects, and he's incredibly picky about what projects he's going to tackle next. But you know, like I mentioned, when it comes to creature creation, he loves practical effects. But you know, obviously, but he likes, you know, the interdimensional time weaving, timey-wimey, you know, all that good stuff. You know, like all the really weird, fun visuals, you know, that was seen in Doctor Strange. So I'm really excited to kind of see those elements really overlap into this movie, which I think is a perfect example of, you know, taking a lot of his strengths and really putting into this possible coming of age fantasy film. Yeah,
that's a great point. Absolutely great point. We'll see. All right, Mukbang Reviews drops one. He says, love all your shows. Great interview with Kate. I agree. Absolutely. All right, let's move on to our next topic, and that is the Snyder Cut. That's right. We are not going to be done with the Snyder Cut for quite some time. There were new interviews that were dropped about the Snyder Cut here yesterday. You know, it was the number that was quoted in the Hollywood Reporter article originally said it would be about 20 to 30 million to finish out this Snyder Cut. But the Warner Media chairman Rob Greenblatt, in a recent interview on the Recode Media podcast, discussed the launch of the HBO Max service, which, by the way, launched today. Let us know what you think about it. I've heard some middling. Oops, sorry, song. Where am I going at? Oh, sorry. There we go. We heard some I've seen some middling reviews about the HBO Max situation. Like Man of Steel is apparently not on there, but all the Harry Potter movies jumped on there, which was a surprise to a lot of websites, which had written articles that the Harry Potter series was not going to be on there for quite some time. There are some interesting choices for the Criterion side of things, but there's no Justice. There's no Justice. What is it? The Young Justice and a number of other titles that people were hoping to see on HBO Max. So a little bit of a weird rollout that isn't 100% beloved by everybody who's taken a look at this. But anyway, Bob Greenblatt, when discussing the rollout of HBO Max and the Snyder Cut that's coming, has said it isn't as easy as going into the vault and there's a Snyder Cut sitting there to put out. It does not exist. Zach is actually building it, and it's complex, including new VFX shots. It's a radical rethinking of that movie, and it's complicated and wildly expensive. Wildly expensive. That's interesting to focus on. I'll just say I wish it was just 30 million and stop there. It's an enormous undertaking and very complex. So, and then following that up in a separate interview with Business Insider, HBO Max content chief Kevin Riley confirmed that the plans for this have been in the works for many months and a lot had to be worked out. He said, quote, there were a lot of issues involved to figuring out how we could deliver on his vision and a myriad of legal issues. We've been sitting on this for quite some time, but working on it. It was obviously a secret project given the high level of interest, but we're chipping away at it piece by piece. There was some strategy, but also some serendipity in how we got over the hurdle of some of those issues just before the launch of HBO Max. So two things that are really stand out from this interview. One, I wish it was just 30 million. That telling you that 30 million was actually on the low side of that quote that Hollywood Reporter had about the cost for the Snyder Cut. And the other side of his thing saying there were a lot of legal issues to work out on this. And that probably is with contracts for these actors and for these production houses, all of that coming into play here. So, Alex, does this surprise you at all that they're already upping the budget or upping the projection of the budget for this Snyder Cut? Because a lot of people thought it would take about 40 to 50. Kevin Smith quoted that. So here in the 20 to 30, people thought, oh, they're only just going to do a little bit. Now 40 to 50 sounds like, or higher, sounds like we could be talking about reshoots of physical actors on set. What do you think?
Not only is that kind of frustrating, that's immensely frustrating to hear. Honestly, it just kind of, so this, it really makes me curious to see, because I am so excited for the Snyder Cut, you know, knowing, because I just love different interpretations of this, of you know, the same story, obviously. In one universe, we have Joss Whedon's, you know, Justice League. In another universe, we have Zack Snyder. And I'm excited to see that collide. Now, it is a little... Zack Snyder going into this, I honestly at this point, because they're not only upping the budget as much as they are, and they're doing so many reshoots and whatever the situation is, it almost feels like he didn't really do all that much at the beginning. And I know that sounds really like sounds ridiculous to say, but it seems like I know they filmed like over like half of it, maybe 3/4 of it at the time before they went back and reshot it and everything. So it kind of really makes me concerned because it sounds like they're not confident in Zack Snyder, essentially. Honestly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, to me, honestly.
Confidence in Snyder.
Yeah, okay. So it sounds like, we needed to up this budget because we need to make so many edits. We need to make so many changes and even more reshoots on top of those reshoots and those reshoots. So it feels like a very lack of confidence in not only Zack Snyder's abilities, because obviously when it comes to directing or any kind of film, you rather have too much than too little. And then you want to film too many scenes or what you want to have too many options. And then you can always go back and edit and, pick and choose. But so it just feels like there's a real lack of confidence. And maybe, again, it sounds like they were almost making this into like a mini series situation. But that's not what it's supposed to be. I really was hoping this would be a really awesome 4-hour long Avengers Endgame kind of situation where I'm in it to win it for those 3.5, 4 hours potentially, and that doesn't seem to be the case. Like, at what point are they going to stop and be like, no, this is it?
Yeah, that's where the question or the concern comes for me, because I mean, obviously, getting back into business with Zack and Zack having all these fans behind him and being a part of making this happen. I don't want to say it was only the fans that made it happen. Certainly the fans were an integral part of making it happen. That movement was an integral part. But certainly, like Kevin Riley said here, there were some serendipitous things that happened, which basically is referring to the idea of the coronavirus, all of that coming in, slowing down production, this movement, and then actors kind of having now holes in their schedule because of the production delays and the moving around of productions. They now have the ability to come in and shoot. So those kinds of things have to factor into this situation. But the idea that they want to up the budget, it makes me think that Zack's got a little bit of cachet here to say like, hey, if you're letting me do this, then you got to let me do this my way and let me bring my vision, because this is what people want. Because if you don't let me do my vision, clearly I've shown you that I will drop little snippets for 3 years or 2 years until eventually the movement grows and forces you to let me do this vision. So
he didn't know that was going to happen, though.
He didn't know. He didn't. But he didn't know.
Like maybe he was like, in a perfect world, this would happen, and he was like, I'm just going to drop little nuggets, a little bit of salt, a little pepper in here every once in a while. Maybe that was it. I understand. The original intent of this film was to not make a mini series or anything. They're extending it out. They're adding potential new characters. They're completely reshaping it, which I absolutely respect. But how much do they have to go back and reshape? To what extent? How much are they changing when it comes to the original film? Are they changing the origin stories of some of these characters? Are they changed because a lot of people didn't like them? Are they going back to reshape, close-ups of scenes with not Wonder Woman's ass? I mean, it's ridiculous. Like some of these, how expensive are they going to make changes for some of these characters?
Well, he does say it's a radical rethink. This is what Bob Greenblatt said, just to get back to this quote, a radical rethinking of that movie. So clearly a lot of changes are on deck for this thing. And Zack Snyder this morning tweeted out a picture of Darkseid. And he said he's coming to HBO Max. That's his vision of Darkseid. Look at that incredible visual there. You may like it, you may hate it, but it certainly looks like an extensive visual shot there of what they want to see for Darkseid. And there are other pictures that have surfaced as well, black and white shots of Darkseid actually in action. So certainly not your standard Darkseid with the massive armor and the helmet. This looks more like Darkseid with everything stripped out of him, and he's just a full-on incredible warrior. A little bit of the Thanos vibe to him for sure, but that's kind of where Thanos came from. Was originally Darkseid. So that's going to cost a lot of money for them to put into motion. So we'll see. I don't think we're done with this story in any way, shape, or form. And they said 2021, but they didn't say when. And the fact that they didn't say when, I think they understood that they were going to take some time to make this. And when Zach was ready, he was going to release it. Also, one last thing, and I think this is interesting too to think about, is they had been working on it for quite some time. So all those denials, Riley said they've been working on it for quite some time. So all those denials that this was even a motion or that it was going to happen, they certainly pulled the wool over a lot of reporters and websites' eyes about this situation for quite some time. Because I always felt, and a lot of people always felt, the reason Zach was dropping those little hints is because he knew he had some kind of avenue to possibly explore this. And maybe some offhand comment was made in a meeting is like, well, if you get enough people behind it, maybe. And then he just was like, okay, and occasionally do this and this and this. Because I've never seen a director campaign this hard for a film he'd already shot, had it taken away from him, already been released, and know what. But him just constantly using that bureau stuff, having those watch alongs, doing those things. You know, he did the thing he did in LA, the event he did in LA, where he talked about it. He just was pushing this possibility. So I mean, we'll see now where or when in 2021 this thing is going to drop. Yep.
I totally agree. I do think as well, it felt like when, maybe, I don't know who's the one pitching the idea to, to Kevin Riley, the HBO content, content chief. I don't know who initially was, if, HBO were the ones to be like, hey, we want to attack this, or if it was, or someone approached, Kevin Riley, be like, hey, what do you think of this? See, fans love it. We all want it. And not to mention you're a new emerging stream service, so you kind of want something new and interesting to really get everyone talking about you guys, right? So I'm not sure who approached who, but I wonder if the initial idea was to have 20 to 30 million, and that's incredibly doable. Like you said, depending on how much they filmed. And Zack Snyder, he's very vocal about it. He filmed like 4, 5, 6 hours of content, and they snipped it down so significantly. But it seems like now that they actually have it, or whatever they do have, they might have been like that. And after several conversations with Snyder and some of his creative team, they were like, oh my gosh, we have to make a lot of changes, a lot more than we thought. So we definitely got to up that budget a lot more than we initially planned.
Yeah. And to be fair, neither Zach
all the time.
Yeah. And neither Zach nor the studio said 20 to 30 million. This is what THR reported that they were hearing from their sources, that it was 20 to 30 million. So those words have never been uttered. Right. So
that's true.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes along. Certainly, like we said, the story is nowhere near done. And we're going to find out as soon as those first pictures appear of Ben Affleck and the Batman cowl again on set. People are going to lose their mind, or Henry Cavill.
Want to do that, though.
I don't know, but money talks.
He talks actively about how he hated being on that movie, on that set. He talks about actively how he enjoyed being. It was a learning process for him being part of BVS, but he actively disliked being part of Batman, being Batman on the set of Justice League. Not only just being on the set, that being part of that movie, the extensive that he did, is like he says, it's one of the main reasons that he ended up spiraling, unfortunately.
True, but,
so he credits that movie in particular to that whole situation happening.
Absolutely.
So him looking back and going into it all over again, and being part of that fandom that he's actively been trying to distance himself from since.
Right. I hear your point, Alex, absolutely. But these are two different situations, because he is going on set onto a Justice League film if he comes back to do these reshoots, but they're reshoots. And he's not also trying to write and direct a Batman movie, which he was doing at the same time when he was on those Justice League sets. So this could be a little bit different situation. And also, there were a lot of people that came out of the woodwork to say they were upset that Affleck was being recast, that Affleck was not going to get his chance to do his Batman, including critics, reviewers, pundits, and fans. So all those people came out en masse. So maybe Ben has a little bit of a different approach now, having done the way back. He did that film, kind of went through his thing. Now climbing out, maybe there's a different approach to this. It's a little more relaxed and playful and fun. And hey, there's no pressure here, because if it works or it doesn't work, it's not on his shoulders. It's on Zach's. And so maybe that's a more relaxed situation to walk into. But like you said, but maybe not. I don't know. So we'll see.
Zack Snyder's, and I think he's definitely playful and fun, as a director. So,
Yeah, a lot of people say that Zack Snyder, they love working with him on sets. All right, we are over 160 y'all watching us live. Thank you so much for joining us this lovely Wednesday morning. Swing that cursor button, hit that like button. We're only at 91 likes. Get us over 100. Get us marching to 150 before we end this thing in a little bit. And we'll hear more as we go along. Let's move on to our second story, and that is Tom Cruise. Alex, Tom Cruise.
TC legend, what's up?
Tom Cruise is reuniting with his Edge of Tomorrow director Doug Liman. They are going to be directing. He's going to be directing Tom Cruise for a film in space. That's right, in space. Tom Cruise. People joke about it. It's literally happening. He's going to shoot a film in space. It's a top secret feature film with him. This is according to the Hollywood Reporter. It's not currently set up at a studio or the financier anywhere, and there's no timetable for this movie because Cruise has to finish the 2 Mission Impossible movies. He's still shooting 7 and 8 back-to-back with Christopher McQuarrie. But this is supposed to be done with Elon Musk and NASA. They're involved in this endeavor as well. I mean, and the SpaceX stuff. Now, how much of a movie star are you? He has to now be in the conversation for the #1 movie star ever in the history of movie stars. The fact that he can actually command a film to be shot in space and work with NASA and Elon Musk's SpaceX situation and Doug Liman. This is incredible. Does this excite you at all? Or do you agree with me? This is the greatest movie star ever. What's your thoughts on this?
This, when I read the story, it really reminded me, snippets of it actually reminded me of The Mummy. I think it was 2017's The Mummy. And I say that not because like the movie's terrible or anything, and I'm saying this movie's going to be terrible. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I remember watching The Mummy, and I'd be like, okay, the movie's terrible. However, individual scenes look so technically complicated. And I'm just curious about the behind the scenes, because Tom Cruise is very vocal about how he's constantly trying to challenge himself, not only mentally going into these movies, but incredibly physically. He loves doing all his own stunts. He likes to, put himself on the edge. He is a great person. Like, what are you doing? You are like almost 70 years old, my dude. Calm down. I don't care how many facelifts you get, but I can't wait for it. But I cannot wait for this movie in particular. So, Doug Liman, Tom Cruise, I am so here for that combination. Edge of the Tomorrow, American Made. That movie is incredibly underrated. Yep, very underrated. So obviously they have this really great working connection together. They're both going to be producers as well as doing stuff behind the scenes. So I'm really excited to see that in action as well. But, in space, he's been talking about wanting to do something space related for a very long time. Yeah. So, and it's always kind of a joke. It's like, when are we going to see James Bond in space? When are we going to see Fast and Furious in space? And TC Legend is coming in hot. Hey. What's up?
What's up? There he is, right there, flying out of a plane.
He's gonna be hanging off it's like, remember that hanging off meme?
Oh yeah.
Where he's like hanging off like the face of Nick Cage, like oh my gosh, or like hanging out of he's constantly hanging out of planes and all that good stuff. But I'm super excited to see this really come out. We haven't seen anything like this before, so I'm really curious to see how they're going to get really creative and do a lot of the shots and all that good stuff. So.
Well, I mean, there were rumors that they were working on a sequel to Edge of Tomorrow, which is one of the best sci-fi films made in the last 20 years.
Definitely the argument.
Right, that hardly anybody went to see. Doug Liman's American Made, another really well-done film. Not a lot of people went to see it. So the concern is this is great for them to come together. But will it actually yield box office success? I don't know. Is it a sequel to Edge of Tomorrow? That would be incredible. Because, I mean, the visual effects alone of trying to do stuff in space like that, I'm thinking of Gravity in my mind immediately, what that looked like there in space, which was phenomenal. What can Doug Liman do here? And will it yield a positive box office result? Because their combo is great. They do make good movies, but for some reason they make good movies that not a lot of people go see in mass. So that might be a concern overall, which is maybe why they don't have a financier yet, maybe why they don't have a studio yet, and they're kind of relying on Elon Musk and his money and NASA and their connections to do what they need to do. Just saying.
But also something to remember is that these movies, they are wonderful movies, obviously. I mean, I've never met anyone that watches Edge of Tomorrow and be like, it was okay. That's never a reaction. Everyone loves that movie. So I am confident this movie, whenever, like I think it's called Luna Park. That's what's being like kind of tossed around as right now.
Yeah.
But whenever it does get a financier, whatever it might be, not only it's gonna be required to have a stupid massive budget. Because it's space. But also at the same time, I'm really curious about Doug Liman. He's writing this script as well, supposedly. I don't know what extent, but he has only one writing credit, listed. Really, he's only been involved with writing, for a sci-fi based TV show, only like maybe 7 or 8 episodes or something along those lines. So it really makes me nervous about him being involved as a writer. But I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of script doctors coming in saying hi. So, But I'm really excited to see this kind of go through. They're just like, hey, you and I don't make much money together, but we like hanging out. Let's do something. What's going to make something that's going to guarantee everyone to come see us? I don't know. Oh, another war movie? Another timey-wimey movie? No, another movie in space.
TC in space.
That's the big one.
Alex, what's past space? What's past space? Is he going to fly out 7 years to Mars to shoot a film on Mars? That would be
it's Cruise. It's Cruise. Elon Musk has been saying this for I don't even know how long, but we're going to Mars at some point, right? Not only, it's bonkers.
It's madness to me. I agree. Bonkers. Absolutely. That's a perfect encapsulation. It's bonkers.
It doesn't sound real. It sounds like one of those. It sounds like something Stanley Kubrick would say. Didn't Stanley Kubrick? He said, "One day I want to film a movie in space," and obviously he wasn't able to. But he always talked about how that's something he wanted to do. Right. As a filmmaker, I can't imagine.
Yeah, and Kubrick and Cruise got to know each other really well, obviously, in shooting that film that they did, Eyes Wide Shut, together. Kubrick they became big friends. And Kubrick, of course, the 2001: A Space Odyssey, one of the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest sci-fi film ever made, and it's gorgeous and lush. Woo! Still holds up in 2020. The visuals of that film, they look like they were made today. So he essentially did shoot a film in space. It just wasn't actually in space, but it certainly feels like it when you're watching it, that you are in space. So respect. Level 2 trading.
You started talking about 2001: Space Odyssey, and I took a nap. Just like, wait.
I'm sorry. Good movies are hard for you to watch. I'm sorry. Good movies are hard for you to watch.
I know that movie. Hey, that was a whole other conversation because do I enjoy that movie? Yes. Visually, it's stunning. Symbolically speaking, it's wonderful. I can write papers on it. I can have full-on conversations about how it's symbolic, the music, what it did for cinema, film technologies and all that good stuff. And obviously it's fantastic, but at the same time, oh God, I wanted to take a nap so bad, but I was like, no, tape the eyes open because I'm so bored right now.
Wow. Ben Wellington disagreeing with you, saying 2001 is the greatest film ever.
It's a wonderful film. It's great, but it's just not something I'm excited to rewatch. That's it. You got to be in the mood to watch. It's like watching Schindler's List.
When do you ever get in the mood to watch Schindler's List? I've never been. I've seen it only twice.
That's exactly why.
What? 2001 I will watch a million times more than I will watch Schindler's List.
To help you fall asleep. I get it.
Wow.
Fall asleep.
Oh, Michael, don't bring up that terrible sequel. That was not a good sequel. The year we made contact. Yikes.
Gotta love those big babies,
Ryan Payne says. Ryan Payne agrees with you. It's debatable. I passed out after the first hour, so certainly the fans are a little split up in here. So I love that.
But I love people that love it.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. It's a beautiful movie. I love I love so many aspects of it. But
okay,
that's
All
it.
right.
That's it.
All right, I just want to make sure we got it clear. All right. Well, this seems like a good time to throw to some plugs. Alex, what do you got going on in your world, going on there in the Action Army or with your stuff personally?
Yeah. Okay. So later today, actually at 9:30 Central, we're going to be going into the next match of the winners tournament for Schmobates. The other day on Monday, James White was actually moving on to the second round. He did fantastic in his argument. So he's going to be moving on to the second round, and he's going to be playing the winner of this match tonight. So it's going to be Brendan Meyer from the Quirky Mercs up against Ben Bateman from your man, the FinStock Exchange. So I'm really excited to see that in action. They're both obviously incredible debaters. So definitely come check that out. Watch it with me live at 9:30 Central from the Call to Action podcast page. But yeah, every Tuesday evening, we really, video Drew and I, we really dive into a movie one of us has seen and the other one hasn't. We call it Cinema Bias. Dive into some movie biases about, our film limitations, essentially.
Have you got a movie pick for next week already?
Yes. Okay. So I remember I wrote it down. We're doing Vampire's Kiss with Nick Cage.
Oh my God. Okay.
I've never
Good
seen
luck
it.
with that one. Good luck with that one.
It's going to be, I'm told it's the most Nick Cagey movie ever. And I'm so excited.
Yeah. This side of the Wicker Man remake, yes, it is the most Nick Cagey film ever. I agree. Yes.
Like it's where all the memes, Nick Cage memes and everything come from. Like,
all of that. The eating of the cockroach. He will eat a cockroach in the movie. Lie. He actually did eat a cockroach. Cockroaches
aren't bad, man.
I'm sorry. You've eaten cockroaches?
Insects aren't bad. It's actually semi-common in Thai food.
Oh, is it really? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
cockroaches.
It's like different. There's different types of cockroaches, but I mean, a lot of different insects and everything. Crickets can be really, really tasty.
Crickets, I do know about.
Yeah, they can be really, really yummy. But if you cook them in the right way.
All right. Well, consider me schooled. All right, I'll let it go. But I can't go with the cockroach. I'll go with the grasshoppers. I can't go with the protein. All right, fair enough. Oh no, Brad Payne says Brad Lieutenant. Port of Call, New Orleans is the most Nick Cage movie. Yeah, I
feel like that'd be. Would you ever go on like and argue like most Nick Cagey movie ever?
Yeah. Call Bibbs up for a rematch. I'll do it. Get us in the cage. Bibbs has always wanted to do a Nick Cage trivia competition in an actual cage. So I would happily do that with Bibbs maybe someday. We'll see. One
day a girl could
a girl can dream, yes, or a beast can dream. You guys can follow all the stuff I'm doing. Of course, here the Outlaw Nation YouTube channel down below. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. If you've been watching for a bit, or if it's your first time, trust me, it's a good subscription. We got a lot of stuff going on for sure. As I mentioned last night, me and Kate Mulligan talking that up on the Outlaw Nation show. I got Geek Buddies coming out tomorrow, new episode of Geek Buddies. I got my Strong Style Pro Wrestling show coming out on Friday. But also, of course, as you're watching now, mornings with the Outlaw every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. On Mondays, we have Game Time. That's the sports show. Me and Winston Marshall and Jay Washington get down in ways that you would not expect, and everything is on the table, and nothing is off limits. So, and we get real crazy on that show. Our tagline is, "This is not your sports center." So that's basically our thing. So please go and give that thing a shot and a chance as well. And what else have I got going on? I don't know. There's a bunch of shows on here. Oh, and the Patreon. Let me do a little quick plug for the Patreon right above my head there. www.patreon.com/John Rocha. Go and get involved with that. See the multiple tiers. Big love to Andrew Hale, who kind of re-edited all the tiers to make them a lot more cleaner, a lot more understandable, and to have those benefits you get for each tier a lot more clearer for people to come on to. And we'll be dropping the bunch of new shows starting in June. First week of June is when we'll be dropping one episode of each of these shows. So what I mean by that is the first week will be Criterion Corner. Then the next week will be The Outpost. The next week, OK Corral. The next week, The Outlaw Rides Again. Those are the shows that we'll be doing every month on the Outlaw Nation Patreon there. One every Friday. One episode of one of those shows every Friday. And of course, 2 hangouts we do as well. Tonight, the hangout will be at 6 p.m. PT on the Discord. We'll be hanging out there for like an hour, just talking a bunch of stuff. Maybe you guys might be watching the debates and let me know about how it's going there on Schmobates. We can talk about that. I might even have it up on the TV and watch along with you. We do whatever we want to do on those hangouts on the Discord. So it's a lot of fun. And then tomorrow will be the hangout on camera. That's Schmodown hangout there on Blue Jeans. And we'll do a bunch of conversations about whatever's going on in your world, whatever's going on in my world, and have a little fun. All right. Blah, blah, blah. That's enough. Alex, are we ready for the next story?
I am ecstatic to move on to the next one.
Okay.
Because we'll like probably stop talking about 2001 Space Odyssey.
Oh, there it is. Shots fired. Shots fired. Anyway, jumping in here, the first story in our second block of stories as we go towards the end of the show. Indiana Jones 5. That's right, Indiana Jones 5. It is happening. That's the situation. Frank Marshall was in a recent interview with TV writer and reviewer Christina Radish. She talked about Indiana Jones 5, and then she asked him about the writing process, and Marshall's responded by saying, it's just started, which was a bit surprising to Christina. She's a great writer there. She was a bit taken aback by that, thought that this had been a little bit further down the line. But they then asked Frank Marshall, further about the situation or the status of Indiana Jones 5 because of what happened with COVID and everything else. And Frank Marshall responded, quote, "The number one thing, obviously, is the safety of everybody, the cast, the crew, and all of us. So we're looking at the guidelines that are coming slowly from the health experts and the studios and the different parts of the business. And we're just trying to incorporate everything so we can move forward and be safe. It's going to obviously slow things down, so we're trying to adjust. You won't see a lot of big crowd scenes, for example, for a while. There won't be any more craft service, so maybe that'll be good for people and keeping more fit. That's for damn sure. It's a moving target right now. There are a lot of people working on the solutions to be able to work and be safe." And the other tidbit he dropped here is that he is looking to reboot the Jason Bourne franchise. So 2 for 1 here in this interview, and this is just a snippet of this interview Christina Radish had with Frank Marshall. Alex, thoughts on this, that the fact that they're delaying Indiana Jones even longer with a guy who's in his late 70s or mid 70s and the idea of a Jason Bourne reboot. What do you think about this?
Okay, well, Frank Marshall, he's definitely one of those behind the scenes creators that I really enjoy. I mean, he's been involved with so many different, not only all of the Indiana Jones projects in one form or another, but he's really great with when it comes to evolving already established stories, like you said, with which I'm pretty excited. That's why I am pretty excited about the whole idea about him possibly rebooting the Bourne franchise with new creative teams. I am not surprised that they are now saying that they're possibly, they're just starting. Or reading this, it almost felt like to me, they were almost saying we're starting over, essentially. Because like you said, they had to take into consideration so many new filming aspects they had to start over with. And, it's an expensive movie, as expensive to make as Indiana 5. Indiana Jones 5, you got to be careful. Not only does every dime count, obviously, but, you're with stars that, they can't just casually expand the shooting from like 3 months to 6 months. I mean, involving everything, after. So honestly, reading this, it felt like to me, like I mentioned, they're just reevaluating everything, all the scenes and everything they had to do, because they probably initially had a script and they're like, wait, we can't do that scene anymore. Never mind. Can't do that. We can't go to that country or whatever it may be. And so they had to do a lot of last minute changes. And they were like, maybe we had to change so much. So we are starting completely all over with a brand new script.
Yeah. And this is so, I don't know, this is tough for me because, I mean, people made fun of Sylvester Stallone getting back in the ring in Rocky Balboa, even though it was quote unquote an exhibition match, or watching that terrible Grudge Match movie with him and Robert De Niro it was rough to watch. So the idea that the guy who's almost 80 years old playing this character and swinging around and doing the whip and all of that, that doesn't actually excite me. I know people love Harrison Ford. I love Harrison Ford. But at some point you're just like, what are we doing here? This doesn't make any sense. That you can only strain my believability for so far before it actually snaps. And for me, if this isn't a passing of the torch movie or something where he's more of an advisor, then I don't see the point of it. And I won't believe it. Maybe they'll CGI him jumping around and doing all this. But in my mind, I'll be like, this is a stunt guy they've obviously got, or they're doing some kind of CGI with him to make him look like he's doing the things that he's doing. And so for me, overall, I won't be that excited about it. Maybe they do a smaller story, a more contained story, like Frank Marshall's referring to, not a lot of big crowd scenes. that kind of stuff. Maybe it's a more of a smaller story, a more foundational story, and so we won't get too much with him in that way. But I just, to me, I'm not excited about it. And I know James Mangold is the director they're looking at to come on and direct this. Certainly did a great job with Logan. I have it hanging on my wall here. I love James Mangold.
Ford vs. Ferrari.
Yeah, Ford vs. Ferrari, another fantastic film as well. And certainly can do some work there. I mean, wouldn't that be interesting? Christian Bale's Indiana Jones. No one seems to mention that. That would be interesting to have him like take over the mantle. I would like that idea. Maybe Indiana, maybe Harrison Ford is like he was, the guy was in Last Crusade. Harrison Ford is on one last mission, and another guy is influenced by Harrison Ford to be the next coming of Indiana Jones, kind of like the Dread Pirate Roberts. It's certainly possible in the world of film. So we'll see overall. Yeah. But the Jason Bourne thing, I find this very curious, Alex. That's more of interest to me as well. Is who is going to be cast as Jason Bourne? Will it be a man? Will it be a woman? Certainly, we're more progressive now in our casting. So which way will they go? And because we already tried it with Jeremy Renner. What's the options? Do you have anybody in mind that you'd like to see as Jason Bourne if they redo this thing? Because obviously they're going to go a little bit younger to redo it. What's your thoughts on that?
I feel very conflicted. I'm not going to lie. When I read into this, because I actually really, really enjoy, the Bourne franchise overall. I like that they know what they are. The first one is so great. I mean, the magazine fight is iconic. So when they tried rebooting it, obviously not rebooting it, but, kind of with a slight continuation with Bourne Legacy with Jeremy Renner. Poor Jeremy Renner, I swear. That's an entire conversation right there. Like how many franchises they try to get him, that poor man.
Yeah. But sometimes it just doesn't work.
it just doesn't work, unfortunately, which sucks because he's so talented.
He is, absolutely.
But I really don't know. If anything, I would really want to focus on, and not because I would really am curious if they would try to differentiate themselves from, like the show and also movie by extension, Hannah. Yeah. It feels almost like that, if that makes sense. Because I would love for them to kind of steer them towards younger, as if they're getting college age kids or maybe even younger, really looking to government train them, and so they can really be like sleeper agents or something like that. But that's not really a Bourne story. I understand that. But that's something I would love to see, since we're going with he wants to kind of pursue this with a whole new creative team. He doesn't want to bring back any of the actors, so no more Matt Damon, no more Alec Baldwin or anything like that. Fortunately, unfortunately. So I'm really kind of curious to see just to what extent this will be, honestly.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. We'll see, and we'll see. We'll find out. But he's almost 80. That's just what I come back to over and over again, and it's too much for me.
You can't forget as well, like, what was that, Harrison Ford? It was like during an interview over at Comic-Con or like a morning show or something. And he said, someone asked him, like, who would you love to see the next Indiana Jones? And he's like, no one.
Yeah.
And he's like, no one else is going to be Indiana Jones. What are you talking about? Like,
it's so ironic because
he was offended.
Yeah, that's right. He was offended. But it's ironic because in the canon of the story, someone else was Indiana Jones before he was Indiana Jones, or at least a version.
He wasn't. No, the other guy was never Indiana Jones.
Right,
he was an Indiana Jones-like figure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm wondering if they're going to just kind of possibly pass on the mantle in some fashion. Obviously, Shia LaBeouf he's not coming back. As much as I love the dude, that's for a fact that is not going to come back, unfortunately. So regardless of how you feel about him being involved in the Crystal Skulls as well. But also, the dude is so old. And I love him. I love Harrison Ford. I love everything he's done.
Sure.
But at the same time, he's flat out saying, I'm done making movies. I'm just here for the paycheck. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
So it's just, I can see him getting messy.
And the thing is, Alex, and that may be why they're delaying everything, because they do sense from Harrison that although he is talking about no one should do it, he's not maybe all that keen to do it, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's possible. All right, so get in some Streamlabs super chats here. Please keep sending them in over the course of the show. We'll be answering them. Black Wolf Incorporated said, "What's good, Outlaw Nation? What are your top 5 favorite Batman storylines?" Whoa, and have you read The War of Jokes and Riddles? You come a long way. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, we have here on the show. Very professional from when I started in January and February to where it is now. Top 5 favorite Batman storylines. That's really tough. The Court of Owls is great. I love Killing Joke. Dark Knight Returns is incredible. The Long Halloween. And I quietly have a place for Hush. I like Hush. What about you? Do you have some storylines you like in Batman?
I haven't read extensively on Batman graphic novels or comics, to be completely honest, but I love all of those. I love Court of Owls, and I hate to be like one of like the 3 people that actually enjoy Gotham. The show, because the show it was really bad. I'm gonna just confirm that. Show. It's awful, but at the same time, I love like the writers are so purposeful with all their little nuggets. There's so many to like Gotham City Sirens. There's little nods to, like you said, Hush, Court of Owls and all these things. And I'm like, oh, I see what they did there. So I feel like that was the only reason why I was really into Gotham as much as I was. But yeah, all those stories that you just mentioned, I love 100%.
Yeah. All right. Two Streamlabs are coming. Only 2? Come on, guys. Get in. Start sending in some Streamlabs. Yo, what's going on here on the Wednesday? Andrew G says, why recast Bowie's Goblin King when you can take this opportunity to create a new, maybe more powerful, scarier villain entirely? Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Alex?
You go first. You go first. I have to complete my thoughts on it.
I think if it makes sense, create it. If it's great, then do it. Why not? If you're going to step away, because I mean, Labyrinth doesn't have to be just about the Goblin King. Doesn't have to be just about this story, right? People are like, I don't want to see another Skywalker story. Do we need to have it be a part of the Jennifer Connelly situation? I don't know. So yeah, I'm down with them creating a whole new villain, because wasn't the Goblin King defeated at the end of Labyrinth? So maybe another version comes in this situation.
I can definitely see that potentially happening, because a lot of people, especially, a lot of fans feel like that. Oh, thank you. That, because he's such a beloved, iconic character, the Goblin King. Because that storyline is so beloved, maybe they're like, maybe we do want to put it in that world, but not incorporate that character. He's a king. Maybe he has a daughter. Maybe he's a sister. Maybe he has a parent. I don't know. Maybe the Goblin King was at one time that baby, and that's brother to Sarah Connolly's character. Who knows how a random fairy king came to be in that world. But yeah, there's a lot of different directions you can really go with. But obviously having the title or just the association with the Labyrinth, you are going to guarantee numbers to a certain extent. Yes.
We'll see with that. Absolutely. One more Streamlab that came through here from Brandon Buck says, aren't you a Yankees fan? Why are you wearing a Dodgers hat? LOL. Shame, Rocha. Shame. Well, look, I've been living here for 20 years. I go to the games now, and I've been going to the games for 20 years, and I like the Dodgers team. I like they're a great team. Yankees are always my first love. That's my team. But you wear that hat, and people get super upset on videos, and Christian's the only one to get away with that Yankees hat. Everyone else
get incredibly upset if you wore a Yankees hat in my presence.
Why?
Dude, I live in St. Louis.
No, you guys are the Yankees of the Midwest. Everybody hates the Cardinals in the Midwest. If you look on any ESPN article or anything talking about, the best fans in the United States when it comes to baseball fans, St. Louis is consistently ranked number 1 or number 2. It is true. You can go back the last 20 years. They're consistently ranked some of the best fans. Not only are we not, weenies to other fans, we're not. No, thing is, that's the difference between us and Yankees fans or or Red Sox fans. Red Sox fans, if you go to their city and you're like, hey, I want to have a party with my lady friends, and we want to go have a weekend over in Boston and go see a Red Sox game. And if we wear our St. Louis jerseys, we are gonna get slapped silly, okay? And people are gonna stalk us in the bathrooms, and we're gonna get punched. That would never happen here in St. Louis, ever. Wow.
They're known for getting aggressive towards from out of state fans. That's very true. That's true.
All right. I'm seeing a Bleacher Report here. Top 10 reasons fans hate the Cardinals. There we go. They tend to complain. Scott Spezio and his beard. St. Louis itself.
Oh, wow.
David
The
Eckstein.
beard. That's all you got?
Albert Pujols.
He's not even with us anymore, man.
The fans, here we go. If you have been fortunate to be friends with a Cardinals fan, you know why this is number 3. How can a fan base justify playing the woe is us card while telling people how much better their team is than others? Cards fans feel the whole MLB is out to get them and have a, quote, us against the world mentality when they fail to realize that outside of the Midwest, no one even cares about the Cardinals until October.
As not only a Cardinals fan, but someone that lives in St. Louis, the Cardinals in particular, they've done so much for the community. This is a baseball country. My grandpa was a Cardinals player.
All right.
Wow.
I didn't know that. Respect, Alex.
Yeah. So when people are talking about that, not only does it hurt my heart, a little bit, because I do have a shrine dedicated to all of his memorabilia, but also it's going about this, again, we can whine all we want about, the plays and refs and, being out of state and how people don't like us. Sure. But at the end of the day, are we violent against other fans? Are we chanting go home to other fans from other teams? That has never, ever been the case.
Okay. Fair enough. But the Yankees fans get unfairly vilified because of a small minority of vocal.
That's very true.
There's a lot of us who just love the game.
Very vocal. They're the most vocal.
It's New York. What do you expect? You got to be heard.
Yeah, just like New York City. I mean, like, obviously, you got to have some weenies. You got weenies for fans. Yeah, it's New York.
The basement lounge. Try living in the land of the Browns and the Bengals. All right. I respect it. I would not. So respect. Ohio, I'm sorry. All they have is the Buckeyes, really. That's pretty much it. So there you go. And the Cavaliers at some point. Michael.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What was that?
I love that you sometimes also wear the Rams cap as well.
Yeah, well, I'm in LA. Someone said
absolutely, because the Rams we're a St. Louis team for up until like 3 or 4 years ago, and now that they're in St. Louis, we're like, come on, man. So we like St. Louis. We know they weren't a good team before us, absolutely, but. I know myself, I know so many fans here in St. Louis. We miss them, don't get me wrong, but we are so excited for LA to be fans as well. So we are coming together on our fandom.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it is this. You see the Outlaw Nation channel, right? What do I talk about? I talk about TV, movies, entertainment, pro wrestling, sports. So the fact that I have many loves means I can have many teams. So kiss my ass if you got a problem with it. That's all.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I love that you're a Rams fan. I mean, you're in LA. I mean, if you're not a Rams fan, become a Rams fan.
That's right.
Because not only have they been really great, but as far as I remember, LA hasn't really had any, football teams all too much. So you guys deserve some, football love.
There you go. I mean, we had the Raiders for a bit, but less said about that, the better. All right, let's move on to the next story. But we have one last Streamlab, and that's from Michael Nip. He said, I will be there, which is, of course, a reference last night to the show. If you didn't watch the show, Calvin came in towards the tail end of the show, and Calvin took over for about 20 minutes. It was hilarious. Kate and I were having a great time, and we even texted about it after the show was over about the Calvin experience. That's what I would call it, the Calvin experience, the TCE. All right, our next story is a David Ayer story about the Suicide Squad. Now this cut now starts to rear its head. I know a lot of people are excited about the Snyder cut, but now the David Ayer cut apparently is somewhere in the ether, possibly going to happen. David Ayer is saying now his cut of Suicide Squad would be easy to complete, and it would be an improvement over the version he released in theaters back in 2016. David Ayer, we talked about him the other day, Training Day, End of Watch. He's got a new film coming out called The Tax Collector, which I think is the sequel to The Accountant. No, I don't know. I'm sorry, no, maybe not. I don't know what the tax collector. I'm sorry, I got that confused with Gavin O'Connor. My apologies, but no, he took a lot of crap for Suicide Squad. And he thinks that he initially was resistant to an Ayer cut, but now it seems like he seems to be coming around after what happened with HBO Max and the Snyder cut. I've got his tweets here. Let me put them up real quick. His first tweet here. Is there anything you would change in your original vision now that you've had a couple of years with it, or would that be spoilers if you got the opportunity to release your cut? David Ayer responded, of course, my cut isn't the apotheosis of filmmaking. It's simply better than what the public has seen. And yes, it would make sense to update it. And responding to Frosty over there at Collider, Frosty said in the version of Suicide Squad that we've all seen was not the movie David Ayer wanted to release. With the popularity of superhero genre, why not show his cut on HBO Max? I find that so ironic, considering that site has people who were upset about the Snyder cut happening. Now all of a sudden they're cool with the Ayer cut. I guess it's who you know in Hollywood. Anyway, David Ayer responded, this is a good question. My cut would be easy to complete. It would be incredibly cathartic for me. It's exhausting getting your ass kicked for a film that got the Edward Scissorhands treatment. The film I made has never been seen. And I thoroughly agree with David's points in that way, that he has taken an enormous amount of criticism for that movie. And that movie was absolutely changed in post-production and late in post-production, so much so that it feels like a Justice League movie. It feels like a Frankenstein type of film. So him fighting for his cut, if it's and from what all reports are saying, Alex, it's not going to be anywhere near the 20 to 30 million to do it. It would just be re-editing what he's already shot. Apparently that's so much more easier than what Zack Snyder situation. So what's your thoughts on this?
I definitely think it's doable. I think it's going to be, I do think I wouldn't be surprised if another streaming service like casually picked up like Quibi or Amazon just casually picked it up and they're like, hey, 5 million to, make some, quick edits. And we have like one of the most popular, movies, DCEU movies, because, regardless of how you feel about the DCEU, that movie in particular, it made so much money.
It did.
It did,
million globally. Yeah.
Yeah. So regardless of how we feel about it critically, it's not a great movie, obviously, but at the same time, obviously it did make some crazy money, but also introduced us to really great characters. And I would love to see the expansion of these characters further. That's something you can't deny. Visually, it's really great. I mean, it's beautiful. Like there are several scenes, just like the colors and the vibrancy is fantastic. It's really interesting to see. It's really kind of funny how David Ayer's kind of been like very cheeky about it at the beginning, being like, no, I mean, like, it sure be easy to do, but I mean, I'm not rallying for it. Meanwhile, I'm going to retweet up a whole bunch of stuff talking about how easy it is and how cheap it is. Some streaming service, help me out. But him as a director, he's gotten so much flack ever since this movie. I know personally, I'm not, like I said the other day, I'm not super confident in him as a director. He hasn't really been able to film female characters, very efficiently. Or just write female characters efficiently as well. Something to remember. But I just don't know if I personally would want this. If it came out on Amazon or something, would I sit down and watch it? Totally. Sure. But by no means would I be picking up a new service or anything for this.
Yeah, this is interesting because you couple this with the Snyder cut. If you start to talk about an Ayer cut, like I just said earlier, he's saying that it would only need some post-production VFX polish. So that doesn't sound to me like it would be an extensive amount of work or super expensive amount of work. So if they were to do it, it could be interesting if the Snyder cut is starting to take longer and they start to delay it, then maybe they do release the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad as a kind of appetizer for what's to come. And you kind of finally put to rest what David Ayer was trying to do with that movie, put his cut out there. But Alex, I agree with you. That's something else you have to take a look at this thing for, is that it does his cut now even reinforce even more that idea that he is not good with female characters. Will we get more of the ogling of Margot Robbie? Will she be played more for the sexual stuff? I don't know. So these are the things that could come into play if you do release Ayer's Suicide Squad cut, because David Ayer is very much a masculine filmmaker. That's his focus. There's a number of Joe Carnahan, Gavin O'Connor to a lesser degree, but certainly that vibe of masculine filmmakers. And me, I don't have a problem with it. I just think you have to also flesh out the female characters to balance out that masculinity, because women obviously can be just as damn tough as men in any situation. So you can do both. You can service both sides of the gender pool here and make it correct. But David Ayer doesn't always necessarily do that. And I think that's a fair criticism to lobby against him. So if this cut comes out, maybe a lot of dudes will love it, but there will be people who are look at this and go, what have we done here? Like, it's reinforcing that narrative about him, certainly. So that's something to be aware of as well.
Not only that, just kind of bouncing off everything you're saying, that I mean, he's done a lot of masculine, he does there's so much, there's not only, I love having him as a director on board, because there are incredibly hyper-focused stories that need that masculine edge. Fury, for example.
Yeah, Fury, great.
Yeah. I really do love that movie. So, he is obviously a director that I really, really enjoy. His writing style is very specific, but this is, and this movie, it was filmed a while ago, at least in filmmaking, it feels like a long time ago. Yeah. And also this is the world post Me Too movement. This is the world post Birds of Prey use success. Right. So, there are very different interpretations of the character, and obviously characters evolve, especially a character like Harley Quinn. And that's the whole point about that kind of transformation, but I have a feeling that if it's not done correctly, at the end of the day, it's David Ayer writing Harley Quinn, and his script and the way he shot it so many years ago. I don't know if we would appreciate it, if we ended up getting a lot of those, lost scenes back.
Yeah, good point. I want to highlight this comment from Kal-El of Krypton. You might not like it, but the toxic relationship with the Joker and Harley is intrinsic to the lore, but both sociopaths after all. Absolutely. That's you can do it. Yeah. You can still service both sides of that relationship and still maintain the toxicity of that relationship as well, right? So it doesn't mean because a relationship is toxic, then the man is always the alpha and the female is always behind him. That's not true. It can be two alphas, sociopaths, slamming into each other, and occasionally one's on top and occasionally the other's on top. That's just how it goes. In most strong relationships, you'll find at some stage someone is the alpha and the other is behind. At the next stage, the other person is the alpha and the other is behind. Those are usually successful relationships down the road that understand their power dynamic. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, at the same time, I totally understand where you're coming from. You are totally right. These are both, sociopathic characters.
Sure.
That, like you said, there is that kind of power push and pull. But at the same time, Harley Quinn, her character in particular, she is very loved now. Now for being a character that overcame all that situation,
right.
She is where she's just even more amazing than before. If you even look at the Harley Quinn animated series and everything, they really make fun of the, that perception of Harley Quinn. Yeah. And those are incredibly well beloved right now by, Harley Quinn fans and non-Harley Quinn fans, that kind of version. But, I don't know if fans, especially all these new Harley fans, would appreciate going back to a character where she was still so obsessed with the Joker, where she was taking him back, where, where she was in that horrible toxic relationship, which you are right. It is absolutely essential to the lore of Harley Quinn's character, as well as her involvement, with, being part of Gotham and, everything. But I don't know if we want it right now. We're just discovering this side of Harley, and we don't want to go back to this hypersexualized Harley Quinn character that's just in it that change everything about herself in order to get to the Joker.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to address this real quick too before we move on to the next story. Thunder God Cairo 7 said, I've heard this from a number of places. They said never really got the sexualizing Harley criticism towards Ayer. His handling of Harley was no worse than anything the comics, animated series, and games have done to the character. That's a fair point to make, but you got to look at things in context, right? Which is that was the sexualization back then. Back then in those animated, back then in those comics, back then in those things. But as Alex just pointed out, we're in the post-Me Too era of entertainment. So you have to adjust your perception, adjust your point of view to the situation and give it a more depth and complexity and fairness That's the situation. Just like you can excuse those times in the past, and some people do, as being like, oh, well, that was okay back then. If it was okay back then you have to also accept the other side of the coin, which is it's not okay now. And you make the change now. And so you update it to make it more complex, more layered, more fleshed out, instead of copping out to doing the easy route, which is just sexualizing her. And don't tell me you don't get the sexualization. There's literally a close-up of her bending over with her ass in the camera as she puts on her stuff.
Is ogling her.
Yeah, it's right.
It's a joke that everyone is ogling her.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a joke that everyone is actively sexualizing her. They're not taking her seriously as, a member of the Suicide Squad until they actually see her in action or the effects of her in action, and they're like, oh crap, she is kind of crazy with the bat. Okay, so again, it's all about context, and I definitely understand where you're coming from, because it is a very valid opinion for sure. But if you watch Wonder Woman and you then 6 months later you see Justice League, that's incredibly annoying to see the difference. So coming from Wonder Woman, where it's you do see her legs are bare, her arms are bare. You do get points when she's fighting, shots of her boobs. That's totally fine. But again, it's all about context, because there's no points. Are we ogling her as she bends over, where she's bending over to make herself look sexy? That's not the conversation. That is the conversation with Suicide Squad. She is there for us to ogle her. We're not there because she's actively part of the plot, if that makes sense. It's not about her character growth. Yeah. Not to mention they did get her character wrong though, but that's a whole other conversation. Harley Quinn though, she doesn't have fantasies with the Joker where they're living in some 50s style house and where the Joker is totally normal. No, it's essential for Harley Quinn to have this fantasy where they do grow up together and they're still crazy terrorists. With 30 kids. They're not normal. Get that scene out of there.
This doesn't balance things out. WWE, we ogled Chris Pine. Yes, for once, the spectrum is swinging back the other way. But for multiple decades, we ogled women. So if guys get ogled for a few years, I think it's okay to kind of swing it back the other way.
But also Chris Pine, even apparently he requested that scene to be involved. So that's the difference. He actually said to Patty Jenkins, hey, what's up? let's do this. I know
I've been working out.
I'm like kind of work it out. I kind of want it to be a joke in here where she's like, what's that? Oh, the watch. I mean, what? That's the point of it, where, he requested it. Patty Jenkins didn't come forward to Chris Pine and be like, hey, just want to let you know, we're going to ogle you and we want you to be bashful about it. No, if anything, he came forward being like, hey, I want it to be a joke. I want it to make light of this situation. I'm on Themyscira. That's amazing, Amazon, island, essentially. So I want it to be a part of it.
Yeah, agreed. Jesse Lewis, sadly, making a comment. Hey, if you can't handle strong female opinions, pal, see you later. Yeah, I got no time for it. Ryan Payne sent us a Streamlabs. He said, "Sup, Outlaw and Alex Revolver." Alex Revolver, okay. Sorry, but I'm calling you that from now on. With reports about Ezra Miller not returning for the Snyder Cut, you think it will make an impact for possible reshoots or changes in the Snyder Cut? Well, listen, I'll be honest with you. If they could reshoot all of Flash in the Snyder Cut, I'd be happily on board with that. But since they can't do that, maybe the step is to get a Ezra Miller sound alike to do the voice, or I guess they'll have to cut some scenes and give those lines to somebody else. What do you think they do here in the Ezra Miller situation?
I think it's a really interesting situation because he is clearly passionate about his story, his character. Obviously, he wanted to help pen the script for a Flash solo movie. So I was he's an actor that he loves indie roles and everything. He's we need to talk about Kevin, Perks of Being a Wallflower, a lot of these very small roles that he loves being a part of. There was that one where he ends up being an inmate at a fake prison kind of thing. It's available. I can't remember the title, but it's on Netflix. It's really great. You should go see it if you get the chance. Billy Kudrup is in it, but it's one of those situations where he I think they would have to be shooting around him. Obviously,
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to bring back the actors or anything. Personally, I don't think they will, considering how much, or if they do, I think they're going to be just using their voices. I don't think they're going to do actual physical scenes where everyone's going to have to get super buff again.
Right.
But who knows? I mean, if they, he's in a very bad situation right now. I don't know if DC even necessarily wants him.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think that's the smart move. You got to let it be and, not do that kind of stuff. And if it doesn't work for the, I'm sure Zach can write around the Flash stuff. I'm sure there's enough Flash stuff that he can use. And I know there's that Flashpoint storyline with him going back in time to help to get Cyborg back to defeat the Unity or the Trinity, I think is what, or the Unity, I think is what is like, that's possible, but you can work around that in some form or fashion. So we'll see what they end up. And he shot all those scenes already with Zack Snyder. So you can lift the audio at least and maybe not have to shoot the scenes. You can lift the audio and use it as kind of like a flashback situation or someone hearing this in their head. So there's ways to play around it where you don't necessarily need. He's not necessarily the integral part of the Justice League movie for the Snyder Cut for sure. All right. Let's see. We got any more? No more Streamlabs have come through just yet. We're wrapping up the show in about 10 minutes. So if you have anything you want to ask us, you should do it now as we talk about our last topic. And what is that, Alex? What's our last thing here?
Okay, so we're going to be diving into a really major, I feel to me, this is a very major story. So the dragon tattoo, girl with the dragon tattoo is actually going to be going to the silver screen, specifically with Amazon, which is something I'm very excited about. They actually, Amazon has come forward saying they're in their very, very early developmental stages to make it a series. So they say, and I quote, "It will be taking the iconic character to a new setting to tell a new story with different characters." And this will not be trading on the same ground as adaptations where we've seen in the Millennium series. So I think what they mean from that is that, obviously we're no stranger to the girl with the dragon tattoo series. We've had 3 majorly internationally popular films. I think they're Swedish, with Rumi Rapace. Is it Rumi Rapace?
Noomi Rapace, yeah.
Yes, thank you. But she was actually part of that franchise for a long while, very successfully so. And obviously, with later on, I think it's Rumi Mara that ended up taking
the American version,
with David Fincher. And then, recently, the huge fail girl that the girl that something spider's webs.
Yeah, the girl in the spider's web. Yeah.
In the spider's web, but that was played by Claire Foy. So obviously, we're no stranger to these stories. But obviously, it feels like this story come forward, they're going to be not only, I don't think they're going to be reimagining the character or anything, but they're definitely going to focus on these kind of very dark stories that these books are told, possibly from a different perspective, because they're really great, really wonderful stories. Around the world, they've sold over 100 million copies. So to say they have a fan base, I think is pretty sound, but there's no actors, no writers, no directors, or any creatives or anything that's attached to this film. So that obviously, again, in the very early stages. But honestly, going into this, that doesn't make me scared or anything in the slightest, because I'm incredibly confident in Amazon. They've done wonderful work when it comes to TV shows that they've done so far, and so I think it will translate to TV very well. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an interesting approach. And I think it's the smart approach, to be honest with you. So soon after that Girl in the Spiderweb film kind of failed at the box office. And by the way, I liked that. I thought Claire Foy did an incredible job. If you just know her from The Crown or even First Man, you need to watch her in this movie. She is absolutely badass, nails the accent, nails the vibe of the character really well. I preferred her over Rooney Mara's version of that character in the David Fincher film. So I would absolutely would have loved to have seen that film do better in the box office and spark a couple of more to kind of rival what Noomi Rapace did in the original international film. So that's the shame there. But if you're going to redo it, it's way too soon to be doing it on the big screen. So why not redo it as kind of a Hannah type approach, where they took that Hannah movie and they made it into an 8 or 10 episode series. I watched it. I got to go to the set visit for the second season, and it's incredible what they're doing for the second season. So it's a way to flesh out the world, and they made it really clear in this announcement that they are not redoing any of the books that have come before. They're
Mhm.
creating a whole new world for her to exist in. And you're right, they're not reimagining the character. They're just putting the character in new situations, new worlds, new adventures, new crime things to solve, all of that. So hopefully you find an actress, and they're probably going to go for an actress in their mid-20s or early 20s who can really carry the role for a few seasons if they get this thing right. So I like it because I like what Amazon did with Hannah. After you get past the first 4 or 5 episodes, then you finished with these, in essence, the movie, and you moved on to her story and what's going on in the series, in the world they're creating within the series. So I'd like to see that with the Dragon Tattoo situation, because Lisbeth Salander is a fantastic character. And I've watched all those original movies with Noomi Rapace, and they're great. I mean, the third one's kind of half and half, but the first 2 are fantastic. But you go, okay, there's more here to mine. And clearly, Hollywood thinks there's more here to mine because they're willing to walk back into this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are really great stories where, I don't know if they're going to really focus on from the POV of Elizabeth Samander's character, but there's a lot of books, and I mean there's a bunch of books that are involved in this whole series, from Girl with the Play with Fire, Girl Who Kicked the Horse Sets, Girl in the Spider's Web, Girl Who Takes an Eye for an Eye, and a Girl Who Lived Twice. So she's a hacker, she's a detective, she's overcome so much in her very short life so far. So I'm really excited, and she's a vigilante on top of that, and she's also part of the LGBT community. So it's a very interesting to not only see this kind of interesting point of view, but this interesting character on screen really expanded, because we've only seen from the movies that we've seen, even though there's so many movies about her, I feel like we just haven't really dove into her character, what her character is really about. So I'm excited to see her really be hands-on some of these potential detective stories, and ideally, hopefully set in Sweden, because there's not enough movies that are set in Sweden. It's so cool. Movies that it's so cool. It has to be movies that are set in Sweden, from only the handful that I've seen, that have a very certain vibe. There's a certain modernity to but also at the same time, depending on the movie, a certain coldness to the movie as well, that I think is very essential to this, storyline. So.
You got to explore those Ingmar Bergman films. Those are all Swedish films if you want to go back in time and look at those classics as well. But you're right. And there are apps out there that you can, kind of subscribe to monthly that bring in shows from Sweden, from Iceland, from Finland. So you can explore those more. I've seen them on Acorn TV and the BritBox app as well, that you can go. And Amazon Prime rather, has connections with like the Sundance Now app, all these apps that they have out there. So there is a way to expand your TV watching into other countries for sure, or your movie watching into other countries. So you make a great point there, Alex. Sweden being a very beautiful country, certainly, to set things in. And because the original Wallander is Swedish. If you haven't seen that, the original Wallander, I think, is on Netflix. So you can watch and enjoy that instead of the Kenneth Branagh version, which is good. But that original is fantastic as well. So we'll see what happens with this series. I'm looking forward to it. We'll see what Amazon Prime can do. They have won me over with their Hannah interpretation. So they have a lot of credit with me, and I want to give this thing a shot. And maybe down the road at some point, the channel is big enough where I can go for a set visit on this, or maybe send Alex for a set visit on this. We'll see. That'd be kind of fun. All right, Alex, let's wrap this thing up here. We got about 3 minutes. Please plug away one last time, and we'll say goodbye to the fine folks that are watching us.
You can check me out on Twitter, and that's a pretty cool place to be, if I do say so myself sometimes. But yeah, check me out over at the Call to Action podcast as well, where we do a bunch of Schmodown related content. We're going to be starting a new show very soon. It's going to be called Schmodown Speakeasy, so where we kind of dive into a lot of Schmodown individual competitors, really in their histories and their match analyses, really, while also having a cocktail in hand and making a cocktail specified to individual competitors. So it's really fun to see. Schmodown and cocktails. I mean, come on. What's
going to be the Outlaw cocktail? Sarsaparilla? If you guys even cover it. I don't want to assume that you'll cover the Outlaw, but
I'm sure it will come up inevitably, but who knows? but But there's Danielle Ramirez. She's actually she's a bartender as well, and she's actually made a lot of really great Schmidt themed cocktails. She's actually made one for Kevin Smets that it's almost like a Ninja Turtles looking one. It's includes like egg whites, which is really really good. And she's also made one for with Andrew Guy that actually does include some fireballs, because of course. So it's delicious. So definitely check that out.
There you go. There you go. We did one last Streamlab came through here from Jim Sandlin. He said, when movies open back up, are you going? I'm excited about the Tenet release and would prefer to see it at the theater than video on demand. Hashtag Baba Booey. Yeah, when movies open up, are you going back, Alex? Are you taking a little bit of time before you go?
I am going to be taking some time. I'm not going to lie. It's I'm here and living here in St. Louis. We're just kind of wishy-washy. Thankfully, we don't have a lot of protesters or anything like that. But I mean, I don't even know if I just don't know. I used to, my husband and I, we would like to go to the movie theater like after or before we would go to the gym. And, we can't really go to the gym right now, which is very stressful. And I feel bad. Like I miss running so much. I miss using my weights.
Oh my!
It is. No, I mean it's a way to release stress and frustration. I agree. It's nice to have that. Not to mention, I feel really cool. With doing that like that all the time. I feel like Hercules, but yeah. So I do miss doing that, but I don't think I'll be going to the theater. Honestly, it's it's a movie I'm excited to see, but do I have to see it right away? No. Right.
That's the good question. Yeah, I agree. I'm going to wait. If they do start to have screenings, they open the doors up for us to go to these screenings. I think hopefully they won't chock them full of people. And I'll tell you this, if they do, I'll walk right out of the theater. I got no problem with that, because there's no reason I need to be putting my life at risk for a screening of a film. It makes no damn sense to me. And it's not like film critics and film pundits and film reviewers are the most hygienically sound people. Let me tell you, being in theaters with them, not all of them shower every day. Not all of them are the most hygienic people. So you can catch something. I certainly don't want to have any kind of issues going on in that situation. So I will be way more hesitant to go back to a theater until they absolutely show me all the guidelines and that people are following the guidelines for sure. And Jim, one last thing, dude. Thank you for the email this morning. We are all in your corner. Being laid off is never easy. So giving you a lot of love, man. Take your time through it. Navigate it as best you can. And like I said last night, if I'm any kind of example to you, I got laid off in January. It sucked for about 3 or 4 weeks. Then I put it all together, and here we go with this channel. So please find your way through it. You never know. Like I said last night, and for anybody who's watching, if you're going through some fear right now after being laid off or fired, take this time. You got some unemployment hopefully coming in. Take this time to figure out what you want to do next, not what you need to do next to pay bills. What do you want to do next to have a better life, a more fulfilling life? If you can do that, if you have the luxury of doing that, figure that out for yourself. Make that extra effort. It takes work. It's not going to come to you easily. You will have to fight for it. So if you want it, go and get it. It's not just wanting it. Wanting it is the first step. Taking the steps and taking the sacrifices to do it, that's the next step. So hopefully you all can put that into your lives and make that happen for you on a Wednesday. On a hump day? All right, that's enough of my bullshit. Love you guys to pieces. Thank you all so much for watching. Alex, thank you so much for being a part of this. Again, you'll be back on Friday, of course. We'll be back having some fun with you all as well. Remember to hit that like button one last time before we wrap up. And follow me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. Patreon right above. Get involved in that 6 p.m. tonight on the Discord, Outlaw Nation Discord. Come and join us for about an hour talking about movies, talking about life, talking about everything and anything you want to talk about. And until Friday, we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of Mornings with the Outlaw. Take care until then.